All set.
Okay, what do we have? The first up is approval of the minutes from December. I do have a couple of corrections. Under section 8, number 2, we talk about bringing in Dan from Midtown Grill, but it's Milltown. And under section 9, this is odd. Section 9C1, the property is spelled Quardic, but it should be Quadic with 2 Ds.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello? Can anybody hear me?
Yeah.
Barely.
You can, okay. I didn't get a copy of the minutes. I went back looking through my emails. I didn't see it. When did we get the minutes?
Heather sent them out.
Yeah, I know, but when? In December or in this month? Last week?
Last week.
Yeah, I think they were a little late because I did have problems with my email, but I can tell you when they went out.
Yeah, all I got was the agenda.
Well, just so you know, if you ever have trouble getting the minutes, you can go right to the website and get them there and print them out or download them.
Okay.
Because Heather makes sure that they're up on the website too. Because I've done that where I needed them and they're right where they're supposed to be.
Good to know. I usually get
You
them.
know.
I couldn't find them. Usually they're attached with the agenda.
Yeah.
No, right, I got the agenda Saturday, but never got the minutes.
Oh,
Oh, you didn't either?
they
Okay.
have gone out. They have gone out recently. Maybe they weren't with the agenda.
No, they weren't. That's what I just said. They weren't
Okay.
with the agenda.
But they have gone out recently. Okay. Well, do we have
Except those with the corrections that Brian pointed out. I hadn't seen those. Thank you.
oh, sure. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we are accepting the minutes. Next up, reports. The only thing I have, last month I talked about our June 25th collaboration we're going to do with EDC and Thompson Rec and TBA, and we haven't done any more planning on that. Waiting for Dan to recuperate. For those who don't know, Dan got a new hip last Monday and now he has COVID. So, because he probably would have tuned in today, he's actually getting up and around. The other thing is the collaborative New Year's party that was supposed to be January 3rd, got postponed to January 17th, which we realized last week was Martin Luther King Day and the community center was closed anyway. So now it's postponed to February 11th. So it went from a New Year's party to a winter party to a Valentine's party. If nothing else, we are flexible. And that's good for now. Joe, treasurer report. Did you get that? Did we lose Joanne?
Oh, just a second. Somebody just showed up at my house. Hang on. My report is there's $17,132,000 available.
Okay. Yeah, we haven't had much, yeah.
No expenditures
Yeah.
lately.
Yeah, so we should, Brian, I would suggest that you come into the office sometime and we go over that and figure out what we can move forward with. Because that money
Yeah.
was all set aside for specific projects. I mean, some of it was encumbered. And we just haven't been able to, as we know, the 11th Village money. I will admit I've had my head so stuffed full of huge grant budgets that I have somewhat lost track of what we put aside to spend on what projects with this commission. Because whatever those things are, they're either going to need to be expended or encumbered before the end of the fiscal year. And I'd like to get as much of that in motion before we head into budget season in earnest.
Yeah, I can come in within the next few days. I'll give you a heads up first to make sure that you're available.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah,
Okay.
we'll do that. Okay. Update on businesses. Yeah, did you notice with the list, last month we reported that we had Sully's Bar and Grill. This month we got a notice that it's no longer in business. But we have a new trade paperwork for the Pit Stop Pub, which is the same place. So they opened up under a name, closed and opened up under another name. So that's the Pit Stop Pub. There's no activity there yet. I went by the other day. We also have Pinecraft Estate, which is a wedding venue. We have Naylor Construction for home improvement and Corner County Landscaping. So, I mean, that's pretty good. I think we had 4 last month too.
Where is that Pit Stop Pub going to be?
That's the old Four Corners.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I went by the big sign is empty. And I don't see any activity, but maybe they're still sprucing the place up. So we'll watch for that, see how it turns out.
And Pinecraft is a place up near the dam.
Yes.
Does anybody else have anything else for businesses?
Nothing for the
Okay.
new restaurant yet then?
No.
Well, they, what, you mean Jill's place?
Yeah.
I thought she did all her stuff ages ago.
Did
I mean,
you?
that wouldn't be, I think so. I mean, they're getting ready to open, so she's a
Right.
legal entity now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I thought you meant by, because I haven't seen it open yet, but.
Renee and I were doing a walk through the neighborhood to get some pictures to support one of the grant applications, and she was working there. Jill was working there, so we went in, and looks nice on the inside. I mean, that's always been a nice spot. So hopefully Jill is the person who will finally turn that into something successful. I think she probably has the right idea, having dinners and not just lunches. Because with limited foot traffic during the day, when people are out of town at their jobs, the available traffic is minimal. But if that's a neighborhood place that people can walk to on Main Street, I think that's a good strategy for her. Also, nobody uses the church parking lot at those hours.
And anyone who can establish something at this point and keep it going as the mill development starts, you're going to have people working there and eventually moving in that are going to need places to eat. And I'm sure we can handle that third restaurant with LB and Milltown.
Yeah, and there's a gap there anyway with our father's table gone.
Mhm.
But yeah, and LB's has the newly renovated LB's. I haven't been in yet.
I was in last Wednesday, actually the day after they reopened, with the commissioner of the state's Department of Economic and Community Development, actually for a cup of coffee. It looks nice in there, you know. It definitely benefited from the, well, it's not a facelift, it's an interior, from the spruce up.
And I didn't know they offered dinners. Is that new or have they been doing that and I just didn't know
I think
They've
LB's
always
has had
been-
dinners.
it? Okay.
Yeah, I used to bring my kids there when I moved here 21 years ago.
I only ate there once, but for lunch.
Okay. Well, next up is citizens' comments pertaining to agenda items. The only citizen is Ken.
Make some comments for us, Ken.
Oh, make some comments. Why, is the meeting gonna be that quick?
It could be, I won't complain.
Yeah, I was actually hoping Brian Santos was here, but he's not. I quickly looked at the agenda because I remembered it was on tonight.
Yeah.
So I do see that there is some talk about the solar up at the school, I believe, still on the agenda.
Yeah, we're keeping it up there, so if we have any updates, it won't drop, so it stays
Yeah.
on the agenda.
I mean, that's something that's long overdue that we should have done a few years ago, you know, without a doubt. And, you know, I don't know if anybody saw, but the park is closed for the next few days on the website. They're doing the water main through there. So the park is gonna be closed. It's been kind of quiet since the first year, and I just got up my emails going again. I mean, it's been pretty active between the P&Z and things of that nature. That seems to be taking the most of the talkative stuff with the town and trying to deal with the ambulance situation, which is, there is a meeting with Putnam tonight, but unfortunately, due to being careful with health, I'm not going out for the week. The testing and so forth have to be on the safe side when somebody comes down in the family. So
Yeah,
it's seems to be spreading very quickly, very easily, unfortunately. So
well, I think
that's
everyone's
about
doing
it. I mean, if I got something, I'll be more than happy to chime in later on.
Okay. Thank you, Ken. Okay, as far as old business, I just wanted to update that the three people in question who hadn't renewed yet have renewed. I got a message from Heather. Joanne, Brian, and Charlie, Brian Lafredo and Charlie are all set for another fun-filled, 2 years?
That
new
is correct, yes.
Okay. So for new business, I put budget, but there's really nothing until Tara and I talk about it, there's probably nothing to talk about.
Well, the one thing we could talk about, which is the only really pressing thing for me, is what the topic that we touched on last month, which is EDC contributing to the Eastern Connecticut Land Bank as they are raising funds to hire an executive director. And I think I shared what the land bank strategy was at that time, to go to all of the towns that they would be covering and ask for small contribution. I mean, it's like any other kind of crowdsourcing, right? Because, and as you guys know, I am on the board of directors of the land bank. You know, they have their 501c3 status. We even actually got our first grant for a property in Plainfield, and Marianne and Wayne in particular, and Tim Myjack, who's another LEP on the board, have been pursuing that in particular, along with Rich Roberts and another one of his colleagues from Halloran and Sage, who are also, Rich has been acting as our advisory council, kind of as in kind, and then his colleague whose name I forget. Anyway, they've been working on that. but the land bank is limited in its ability to pursue its mission, which is to improve brownfield properties until they can actually have a staff, right? The board of directors has been doing everything, and just like this commission, you're talking about a group of volunteers who have a dedication to the purpose, but are not necessarily situated themselves to do that day-to-day capacity building stuff. So the strategy that I helped them work out, because I have, as you know, some experience with fundraising, was look, we got to go to the 4 towns that we have the closest relationship with, and that would be Thompson, Putnam, Killingly, and Plainfield. Ask them to seed the tip jar so that then Marianne and Wayne and maybe me or maybe somebody else from the board of directors can go to NECOG and make the pitch to the 16 towns in the NECOG region, and then following that go to CCOG and make the same pitch. Because by having towns that are committed, it raises the peer pressure, right? Raises the stakes when you present that elsewhere, and that is often a good strategy. So we raised the topic to MISRAC in December. MISRAC endorses the idea. I think you can probably expect a letter from Janet Blanchette confirming that. And I think there's a clear tie-in to the mission of the Economic Development Commission and the reclaiming of brownfield properties, to devote a part of the next fiscal year budget to that. And I would say you could go as high as 10. That much like the 10 that we put aside for the talking sign, that the implications for it are significant, and would kind of move what you guys are funding to sort of the next level of what do I want to say? The next level of development in terms of away from the grassroots now to getting more out into the region and larger scale. But obviously I cannot make that decision for you. I can only present it. So that is what I am presenting.
I have a couple of quick, I hope they're quick. This sounds a little bit like the Eastern Connecticut Conservation District. It's focused on very specific types of issues, and it coordinates with different municipalities in this area with resources that none of us by ourselves can have. And I think I heard you say that it's already in place, but it's just kind of been like us, mostly volunteers doing any committee work that needed to be done. So am I correct then? You're hoping for a commitment of money from us that can be used to kind of plant seeds and get all of NECOG involved on this, or how many dollars are we looking for? I heard 10. You mean 10,000?
Yes, that's what right, because what
From
the
each of
land
4?
Well, every town I think is going to come to their own conclusion based on whether they have, for example, a group like this that can fund, or whether they have to go directly to the general fund of a town, or every town is different. I mean, there are 16 towns in NECOG. I think there's a comparable amount in CCOG. If each of those towns kicks in 5, 7, 10,000, by the time you cobble that together, now you've got a real executive director's salary. And then the way the land bank is intended to work is that it becomes self-sustaining as it does its mission, because part of how it will fund itself as it grows is through the acquisition and subsequent sale after cleanup of brownfield properties. But it's a chicken and egg thing, right? They can't do any of that unless they have somebody who actually can devote a professional level amount of time to doing so. So and I apologize in that I cannot remember the number that was agreed upon by the board of directors as the target for that executive director, but Marianne and Wayne did sort of arrive at that. You know, and they'll adjust their plan based on what they can accomplish. You know, what the land bank would like would be a full-time executive director, a staff of one, but who is professionally competent to do the kinds of grant seeking, network building, and fundraising, and project management that the work will require. But again, if we don't raise the full amount that they think is necessary to have a full-time director, can they scale to part-time? I'm sure they can. You know, it would just make the process of building the land bank that much slower. I mean, you know, you get what you pay for, essentially.
How many brownfield sites do we have in Thompson? I can think of 3.
Oh, there's more than 3. I do have a spreadsheet somewhere. Let me see if I can find it.
But all of these need to be cleaned up. They all need work. So committing to somebody or a program that will pick up momentum on that seems very intelligent and timely to me.
I can
I
see
don't know who
the,
that person would be, but you do.
I can see the benefit of it. My question would be, this isn't just a one-year thing. This is I assume it's a permanent position, and considering the difficulty we've had getting money for the EDC in our budget, can we afford to do this ongoing? I mean, if we're going to commit the first year, we should stay committed to it, and I don't know that we could afford that.
It wouldn't be just
That's why
that.
I asked how many other properties, because this is like at a good time with what's happening at 929 and the other sites that we've had discussion on. If we can get coordination on this and turn to the rest of the town of Thompson and say, hey, look, these people are helping us with this and they can help us with that. That's how we, Ken has more experience with this than me, but it seems that's how we've got to sell it to the town. It's already working for us. It can work more for us, but it's a bigger problem. We're all facing it.
Yeah,
right,
and it
we're
is a
looking at-
commitment. It's a commitment to a regional program as well, right?
Right.
It doesn't just benefit Thompson. It's creating that ability for this resource to be available for everybody in northeastern Connecticut. You know, Thompson in some ways is better positioned than a lot of towns. I work full time for the town. There's plenty of towns in Windham County in the Northeast that do not employ someone in my position full time. So I'm a super aggressive grant writer. I can do stuff like grant writing myself. What I can't do is monitor environmental cleanup. The land bank also has the ability to acquire properties, do the cleanup themselves, either grant funded or, you know, over time through whatever money they accumulate in their coffers, and then sell them in a way that the town has constraints on. Like when the town claims, let's say, for the sake of argument, that the town were to foreclose on 630 Riverside for tax arrears, which legally, if a property is in tax arrears, they're able to do. The town process for sale is to go to bid, right? The land bank has different requirements and fewer limitations, so they can essentially sell it like a regular transaction, which in some cases benefits the land bank more because it funds the work, but can also curate the buyers more, right? Because then in the auction setting, you're coming in, it's cash bidders, you take the highest bid that you get, whatever. They don't have to present their plans to anybody. They don't have to show that they want to do something that's good for the community. It's just a transaction. The land bank has the ability to sort of negotiate the way you would any other private sale. And because they are mission driven and a nonprofit, they can curate that buying experience much more closely so that, for example, let's say the building was still on the site at 630 Riverside. If somebody came in as the high bidder to the town, decided to knock it down and haul it away, the town has very limited ability to stop that as a private transaction and can't really ask the buyer what they're going to do with it, whereas the land bank can. You see what I'm getting at? I think it's the ability to be more directly involved in the outcome.
Well, let me ask, what's the time frame for this? I mean, are we talking this year's budget or the budget we're gonna start in July?
My thought is for the upcoming budget season, but if we can essentially tell the Eastern Connecticut Land Bank that we are giving them effectively a pledge, right? We have approved this money. The Thompson Economic Development Commission has approved X money, which will be available July 1st, 2022. I think that is, based on my conversations with the other board members, that's what everybody's targeting. Because most towns, I mean, if you're going to a municipality, most towns have committed their funds for projects through a year. There may be some discretionary funds laying around here and there, but the point of doing it now is to hit communities as they are headed into their budget season.
Have any other communities committed, pledged anything yet?
I am not aware of the status of Wayne or Marianne talking to the other towns yet. Now, Delva is also on the board of directors, and I believe she was going to make the same pitch to her Economic Development Commission or whatever they call their body. So that's it. I mean, we're going one at a time until we go to NECOG and say, look, this is our seed money so far. Be a part of it. You know, and then there's like the little red hen thing, right? That if you participate, you know, the chances that you get early action are going to be higher, right? We're going to go to the towns that, I mean, any town can still come and ask for the help, but, you know, a town that has already contributed and shown commitment to the process is going to get, I think, brownie points as the board considers its next tier of projects. So
Would
that's, you know.
With that many towns, I mean, would 10 be a lot or more than we need? Could we get by pledging 5?
I think you guys can make whatever decisions that you want. I have suggested 10 largely because, you know, this commission has received a budget of, you know, 15, 20, sometimes as high as $25,000. I don't know what you guys are considering right now, but I can tell you that I do not have an overarching large project that I have in mind to be coming to EDC for, because we've done the large, you know, the large seed money projects so far, and the ones that are moving forward are those where I've been able to leverage those funds into other things, right? The train wreck park thing. I don't see coming to EDC for money for train wreck park, right? In this budget season. There may be smaller expenditures here and there, which is why I wouldn't go any higher than 10. Because let's say you ask for 25, you have to assume based on past patterns that that's going to get knocked down to 20 or 15. But if you can identify those other projects that you want to have expenditures on that are maybe in that $3,000 to $5,000 to $7,000 range, you know, and describe them what you want to do, you've got a better chance of getting that funding the more thoroughly you describe it. If you've got that one big ticket item, which I would call, say for this commission, that's a big ticket item, $10,000. Then it's almost like it gives a boost to the rest of the budget request. Like we've got this big important thing that's going to have meaning for the region, and we want to be a part of it. And then also we want to, and I'm just tossing these things out there, I'm not saying that they're things you should consider or not. We want to reprint more Z maps. And we know that's going to run us $3,000. Or we want to build another set of garden beds, and we already know what that costs, or whatever it is, whatever you guys decide you want your projects to be in the next fiscal year. And that's one of the things that after this discussion, I think we could, when you set your ideas and your priorities, you and I can sit down and figure out what it might actually cost, or what we think such a thing might be reasonable to budget for. Then that's a higher quality request.
I'm just, unclear on, to Brian, to LaFredo's point, if we, pledge a big amount and we need it year after year, we'd have to justify it. If we have enough towns and a smaller amount does it, it's easier to justify, especially if we're getting results. Because you're talking, potentially a lot of towns, 16 in NECOG, and
Assuming
Yeah.
that our service region is comparable to the tourism district, because it's it's the eastern part of Connecticut. And receive are those where there are pre-existing relationships. The four that I mentioned, Stonington in the south is another one. Ashford, I think, is another one where there's been some interest indicated, and Wayne and Marianne know the full list of projects that have been considered. But those are going to be the communities that are most likely to contribute. There's going to be another series of communities that will probably contribute, and also probably contribute at a lower level if they see that other towns think it's worthy. Then there's your next tier who might contribute next year if they see they get results. And some towns are never going to contribute at all. Norwich, we know, is not going to contribute, not because they don't approve of the work of the land bank, but because they have something internal that they are working with, and the land bank is redundant to that effort, as I understand it. And so you might run into stuff like that. But every town in Eastern Connecticut has brownfields, and tons of towns in Eastern Connecticut have mill sites, and all of those properties are complicated. And often more complicated than a municipality is going to be willing to take on its own. Cleanups are expensive. Grant writing is complicated. Does your town have the capacity to attack either of those things? Liabilities can be complicated. And then does the town have the capacity to do the marketing of the property afterwards? Can they regain their investment if they try to go it alone? The land bank gives towns the opportunity not to go it alone, but to draw on a collective group of expertise. The funny thing about my presence on the land bank is, in some ways, I'm the odd man out, right? I'm not an engineer, I'm not a lawyer, but I do have this particular suite of fundraising skills where I'm trying to help them think their way through that. We're all good grant writers. And, as we move forward with projects, I may go out into the region to help other communities do the kind of visioning stuff that we've done internally, right? So it's making that kind of pool of knowledge available to everybody. So anyway, that's my pitch. Wayne and Marianne are much better pitch people than I am, because it is their passion project. But clearly a worthy one, and clearly one that has implications for Thompson and Thompson's development from my perspective. So it's just up to you.
No,
guys to
it
agree.
sounds worthy. I'd hate to be, the town that says, hey, we'll pledge 10 and everybody else pledges 1.
I wouldn't worry about that, Brian, because there's no requirement that it does become an annual thing in perpetuity. It might be so for a couple of years until they get to that level with being able to fund a full-time executive director on their own, but also it's the opportunity to be a leader and to show an investment that will ultimately bear fruit. But I understand if 10's too high, like I say, I toss it out there because I think that there's nothing else as pressing as that right now. But if you guys disagree and think there is something specifically more pressing or equally pressing that needs more funding, by all means, make that series of decisions.
I have some thoughts here that, number one, I do believe that this is a very important program. I found myself, when you mentioned Norwich, I found myself wondering if whether or not this should have been a NECOG function. But since it is not a NECOG function, and it sounds like a little bit more like the last Green Valley than what I thought first was conservation district, because it's not governmental. We're going to have to find some way to persuade the Board of Finance and the residents of the town why this is the smartest thing that we could do. Most of you know that I'm perfectly willing to say, yeah, let's ask for 10,000 and let somebody else say no. This is one that I found myself thinking, gee, I'm saying no at 10,000 because I'm thinking of the way that the residents of the town have been so tight-fisted over the years that I've been here. It is a good goal. It's a good idea, Tira. I think that the town will benefit. But I think we have to find some way to show the taxpayers, this is how we can benefit. Look at these properties that are just sitting out there causing us problems. We could start to turn things around. It's just a thought.
We do have, the land bank does have, a nice tidy PowerPoint for presentations, which we do intend to trot out for the budget reviews with the boards of selectmen and finance. And as we have pursued as a strategy before, you already know that you're gonna get cuts, right? You're gonna present your ideal and they're gonna get cuts. So I would present a request as high as you feel comfortable presenting, expect that it will get cut, and after the final iteration comes out, make the commitment based on what you actually get. Right? So whatever you decide prior to the Board of Selectmen making their first round of cuts and the Board of Finance making their second round of cuts, all three of those numbers are going to be different. But if you say, and let's just stick with that number of 10, and I wouldn't go over 10 for a number of reasons, but let's stick with the number of 10 because it's nice and round. If you say we will vote up to 10, I can turn around and say that to the land bank and say to them, look, the final amount is going to be contingent on whatever the boards of selectmen and finance approve. Could be 7,500, could be 5. The important thing is if it comes out intact, it could be as high as this. That's still good. That still gives the land bank the opportunity to say, hey, your neighboring town sees this value. They're still going through their budgetary process, but all things being equal, they are interested in contributing up to 10, right? Each one of those little nudges can help move the needle for another community.
I think it's a good, it fits right into the scope of EDC. It's in our best interest. So I think it's a good idea to pledge something. And, I'm open to, like Charlie's discussion, suggestions for the final number. And if we think 10 is good, then see what happens when we throw it out there. Do you have any thoughts?
Ken, this might be a place where your insight is helpful, Mr. Selectman.
Insight as to what? How the budget's gonna work?
Yeah,
Yeah, what you think will fly.
To be perfectly honest, I think with the uncertainties and everything that we got going in the budget with the ambulance and the rate of increases that are gonna have, I expect that whatever is put up is gonna get a hard look-see and get reduced dramatically. That's just my gut. It's nothing that I want to say I agree with, but we've seen what happened last year in the past. Should we contribute to this? Yeah. I think it's a great thing to do with the land bank. It leaves us from the liabilities and stuff, such as a property like 630. So it has advantages. Should we contribute something? Without a doubt. You can put in the 10 grand and it'll, go from there. The resistance we've had on the 11th Village as well, from other people.
Yeah.
But that's,
I
that's
don't
all, it's all hindsight. We need to move forward, and we have a lot of people that just don't have the same visions.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people around here who want to burn it all to the ground too, but we're not
Exactly.
catering to that. So
No.
this is my feeling, and I don't disagree with a thing you said. My feeling is that based on past experience, if you guys ask for 2, they're going to give you 1, right? So that's why I'm saying set the bar as high as you feel you can comfortably set it. Whether that's 10 or not, I don't care. I wouldn't go higher than 10, because once you get higher than 10, your expenditures need double approval down the line, right? So that's just 10 is your threshold.
How about this
But
thought?
after that, use your discretion, decide amongst you what you want to ask for.
Yeah, and if you look at properties like 630, et cetera, that we do have in town, it does fall into the economic development aspect of it for the future. And
Yeah.
anytime that anybody talks about any of this, they look at, well, what's economic development doing? What are they going to do to bring in business? And you're going, we're looking at the center of town, and here's a prime example of a possibility if it comes up where this can be an advantage, and you're going to have to sell it.
I had a long talk last week on Wednesday. The commissioner of economic and community development for the state came out. We spent an hour walking around North Grosvenor-Dale, and we talked about all that stuff. Business development and what's coming in and who's interested. And I said, look, you are walking around this district with me. The place needs a facelift. We've done the regulatory restructuring, right? We've created the conditions in the skeleton. Now, let's imagine for a second that any one of us has a startup company looking for a home, right? Maybe I just invented the latest, greatest widget. I'm looking for a place to locate my fabricator, and because it's a startup, I also want to be able to live there, right? So it's like a whole package. And those little startups are the ones that are the resilient, are the things that create the resilience over time. I've said it a million times. Rather than have one employer employing 1,000 people, you'd rather have 10 that employ 100 or 100 that employ 10. right? So that as one goes out of business, it can be replaced by another. It doesn't disrupt the whole fabric. But the fabric here was disrupted decades ago because we had one employer with thousands of employees. It's taken all this time. The conditions to attract those other, smaller, more nimble companies have not existed. Not necessarily through fault, right? People do the best they can with the information they have. Let's learn from the mistakes, give the district the facelift, build the walkability, improve the brownfields, make the place attractive. Because if it's not, it's going to be a hard sell, just a hard sell.
Well, we definitely need to put money there. I mean, with the aid that we've gotten from economic development, from the state level, the facelifts on the sidewalks and other projects that Mizrak has been doing, and we've been moving forward. We need to show that, we're going to continue to put some skin in the game, for the long-term goal. And, just for that last grant that we got with the interconnectability between 929 and 630 was very important. And it was very easy to get that because of the strides that we've made forward. So we definitely need to put something there. And that's got to be part of the argument that goes in front of the Board of Finance, that, this is all a bunch of pieces that's going to become the greater goal for the future of Thompson.
Here's a thought. I'm still feeling a little ambivalent about 10,000, but if we make any commitment to approach the town for this kind of money between 5 and 10,000, we definitely need help from the other members of the active members of this group that Tira's informing us about to sell it. And whatever they do that helps us to sell it, they use cut and paste, different towns. They plug our name in as a success story when they turn and talk to the next town down the road. But we can't do it. Those of us that are in at this meeting tonight, I know I can't go before the finance board and the Board of Selectmen and persuade them to put this into the budget and then hope that the residents of the town will say yes. That's more than I can see us doing. But it's also exactly the goal that we are looking to establish. A group that can come in here, that can advocate for us to turn brownfields around, that can list those opportunities that are within the town, give us something tangible that we can show the people that need to make the final decision on this. If that kind, and if they can keep it at 10,000, then they've earned it.
Well, definitely when the budget goes forward, I mean, Tira does represent, and, we do some evening meetings. We could do the EDC in the evening and get some of yous to come down in support. And at the same time, when we go in front of the Board of Finance, that, members of the Economic Development Commission are there as well, showing that they're all behind that, and it isn't just the face of one person, doing it.
Yeah, I can tell you that I just set today the time that I'll be presenting, my office's budget, but importantly, the EDC budget. That's actually the most complicated budget that I present personally on it's the first date, the 7th of February at 3:30 in the afternoon. What I didn't see, those are Zooms, right? I think that's what I saw in the email.
I think we'll get our biggest participation by doing it that way. Yes.
Yeah. So I will forward that to all of you guys to mark your calendars, and then when the Zoom link comes in, I'll send that to you guys as well. I think having the EDC there to respond to any questions. If there are questions to advocate for, I'll invite MISRAC to be a part of that. I mean, MISRAC doesn't have a budget of their own, but obviously this is super important to them. They have had multiple presentations from the land bank, you know, seeking to have them endorse the mission or work with them or you know, whatever the case may be for any given at any given moment. And the relationship there is very close. I think it's important to keep in mind that Thompson, for all of the idea that people forget about it or, you know, it's the forgotten corner, Thompson has gotten tons and tons and tons of money for brownfield assessment all the way up now to cleanup because people are working on its behalf. And not just me. Wayne Bugden, who is employed by Gumpert still, he and I worked on that environmental cleanup grant together. You know, and Wayne is the vice president of the Brownfield Land Bank. The prior work that Marianne did, you know, with Marianne is the president of the land bank, right? So the ties and connections to Thompson are huge, and we have received, right? And we are going to put this money to work. It is also appropriate when you are on the receiving end that you acknowledge and contribute back to allow other towns to access these kinds of resources. You know, Thompson has the opportunity to be a leader, and there's something ineffable about that that is not something you can assign a dollar value to exactly, but that over time burnishes the reputation of the community. And that is despite the forces that want to burn everything to the ground. We get a lot of good press when we do things like this. And that stuff does get seen.
Tira, the American Recovery money that we got,
Yes, sir.
is there a possibility that, you know, in a worst case scenario, that qualifies for, say, 1 year of funding for this land bank?
The answer is yes, but let me put a huge but on that. As you know, I just submitted last week the grant to the Connecticut Communities Challenge Grant Program, which is essentially trying to leverage about $1 million of the ARPA award to get an extra $1 million to do not just the things the town voted to do, but the things that the town didn't feel able to pursue because the other priorities were so high. And the proposal that I sent into the state is it's all the things, right? It's the 65 Main project. It's the upgrades to the water treatment plant. It's more planning for the sidewalks on Main Street. It's some both planning and construction and installation for public open spaces in Riverside Park, Swanson Park, the Blaine Road bump out. It's the direct assistance grant to homeowners in that downtown neighborhood to do the facelift renovations. So if we are unsuccessful in that grant request, then the answer is there's $300,000 that is uncommitted. But right now, that 300,000 or 330,000, I think it actually is, $330,000 of quote unquote contingency funds that were set aside the last time the Board of Selectmen voted. If we don't get the grant, it reverts back to that. And then at some point, yes, the town has to decide how they're spending it. And yes, that would be an eligible use.
Well, that's what my thinking was.
Right, but we're well down the line there. We can't touch any of that until I know.
So we get the
that
yay or
grant
nay
is.
on the grant itself.
Correct,
Yeah,
correct,
and
and
I
that's
understand
probably
that.
April.
But I mean, there is always a possibility that, I mean, we want to get all the matching grant money because it's going to benefit an awful lot more projects. But in a worst case scenario, you know, we fight hard, we try and put some money into this thing to get it off the ground. And, you know, if it doesn't happen, yeah, you know, there's always a possibility that there may be some future funding that we might be able to use through, you know, a past grant or something.
You know, another possibility, and the reason that I wouldn't lead with it is because I don't like things that are outside of, you know, the circle of influence that we have, is EDC could say, look, we think the town should be kicking in 10. EDC is willing to go up to 10 just out of its own budget. But what would be really appropriate is if EDC, say, kicked in 5, and somewhere out of the general fund, the Board of Selectmen also endorsed this project and said, you know, we'll kick in 5. That's a much higher risk ask, though. I think it would be a totally appropriate ask, but it's a very, very high risk ask because you are asking other people to dip into their priorities. And let's be frank, there are competing priorities that are very important. Whereas this money, which is set aside for economic development, the tie-in is clear, and you have the ability to say what your priorities are. But those are all possibilities.
I like the idea of spending what we have now. I wouldn't even have a problem with the 10,000 now as far as that amount, because of a lot of the things I'm hearing. If we're not spending the money on anything else, whereas in previous budgets, we weren't getting enough because we felt like we needed it for the maps and this and that. If we're not spending it, we need to spend it, or they're just going to cut the EDC budget even more. This is a useful way to spend it, and we're committing to it now. And maybe some of the things we were just talking about with the ARPA and what Ken was saying can help support it in the future, or we can go after that more money from the town in the future. So I was just worried about it in perpetuity to support it. But even like Tara said, more towns might come in after the fact. And like Charlie said, we can kind of be the town that's spearheading it, and that would be a feather in our cap as well. So I think it's a win-win, especially with some of the other options out there that can help fund it later.
Look, I will tell you, you're going to get some people grousing about how money is spent no matter where you decide to spend it.
Mhm.
So don't
And I
cater
don't think that
don't
there's any,
cater to the complainers. Cater to what do you want to accomplish? And it may not be this, right? It may be something else, or it may be this in combination with other things, so that it reduces. This is what your ask is. But you know, you set your own priorities based on what this commission thinks best suits their mission.
Let's-
I don't believe we have any monies left over out of this year's budget to be able to just roll that into it. This is looking for next year's budget and a commitment from us as we move forward.
Yeah,
If we
that's
had
what we-
$10,000 right now, I'd say, sure, bang, do it. You know, spend it before the fiscal year is over. But we don't, we got 17,000 total. And most of that's earmarked. It's all allocated.
I believe it's all earmarked, and that's the rub. That's why we're looking at next year.
Yeah. So we were smart in that respect because we have good programs and we tied the money up so that the town doesn't say, hey, you're not spending it anyway. We're spending it as fast as we can.
I'd like to hear from Joanne, since she's the only one that hasn't chimed in here.
I had to step out at the beginning because my son came over unexpectedly, so I missed some of the conversation.
But you got most of it, I'm sure, Joanne.
Oh, yeah. Whatever, you know, the majority of the commission wants.
All right, well, let me ask, it doesn't sound like anyone thinks it's a bad idea to contribute. Period. So the only question would be how much we want to put in.
Do we have to pick a specific number, or I think I heard it said that it can be up to 10,000. And then as this gets established, we see how much they need from it.
Well, we'll be working on the budget soon and we'll be putting a number in. Don't have to have it tonight, but, and I'm wondering if 10 might strike people as high if we did something like 8. Is that more middle of the road and less to, hit people negatively, the selectmen and the finance committee?
To that, I say two things. The first is always ask for what you want. Ask. The second is if we get support from the rest of this group that we're trying to get them started so that they can help us, then they could walk away with 10,000. If we tell them we're willing to request up to 10,000, but we need you to help us to sell it to the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen, and whatever number we come away with is how much we can support you for in this fiscal year. If that number gets knocked right out of the budget request because we don't have the means to convince people, well, at least we made the request.
Yeah, I think we can justify getting something because it so directly ties into economic development. I don't see how it would get struck down from anything down to 0.
You're
Could be
probably
wrong.
right, but then again, I'll make the motion that we actually include $10,000 as a line item in our budget to be used to support the Brownfield land grant program, and that if we get support from that group, we'll give them that money, and if we don't get the support, then we'll give them what the town says is an appropriate investment for the town.
Right. Does anybody have a problem with putting 10 in the budget for next year and see how it flies?
Put 10, but because we know we're not going to get it, so,
Well, for whatever reason, that's all we can do is put a number in
Yeah,
Yes.
and see how it goes.
The point of order, I think that was actually a motion that Charlie made.
it was. I made the motion to put in the $10,000 as a line item in the budget. All the rest of that is discussion. That was the motion.
Well, the discussion comes after you get a second on the motion.
Right,
Yeah,
so
I
Brian
know.
Lafredo just seconded.
So all that other stuff about whatever support we get from this group to persuade the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen through the budget process. That's how much we can support them in this year. It's a great idea, and it's something that we got plenty of properties to work on.
So Heather, just for your clarification, the name of the organization is the Eastern Connecticut Land Bank.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, yeah, I'd like to move on since we just spent, I think, over a half hour on this one. So
You
You
with
guys
that-
gonna vote on that motion?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Oh. All in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We will ask for 10 in next year's budget.
And Tara's gonna tell them what we need for tools to sell it. Great.
I'm pretty
Um,
sure I'm the tool who gets to sell it, actually.
No. You're the talent. You're the talent.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I mean, if we've presented before. But like I said, this one ties in so directly with economic development.
I'm
think
gonna try to rope Janet Blanchette to come in with us on this because she speaks actually very eloquently as well, even though she's not on the land bank. And I think that Janet is highly regarded by all of the decision makers involved. So I think she is a good sort of card up the sleeve for these things. I wouldn't bring the land bank into the Board of Selectmen or Board of Finance meetings directly unless asked. I think I would just represent them as a member of the board in that instance. But Janet would be an excellent spokesperson because she understands all that stuff super well as well. So,
Sure.
but yeah.
As long as they can help provide the materials that you need so that you can sell it, that you know how to work that more than I do. I just know that I can't. We need help.
All right, let's go on. Now, progress reports. First up was last month, we talked about connecting with the commercial realtor community, and we did set up a time, or Tira set up a time, May 3rd, 9:30, Lord Thompson Manor.
Yeah, and I went to the one in Plainfield. It's should be an easy peasy, coffee and pastries. The host community is asked to do a little more presenting than the other guests. So that's an opportunity for everybody on this commission to take a piece and do a little bit of the dog and pony show, right? Kind of the stuff that we talked about with the Santos one sheet, or what we were calling the Santos one sheet. Somebody can talk about the restaurant, somebody can talk about the regulatory structure, the opportunities. It was a small meeting, the one I went to, but it was right after the new year. And the first live one they'd had in a while. I think they had some COVID absences. The next one's going to be on Zoom, and then I think they're back to live after that. And we've got till May to figure it out. So when I get the Zoom link for the one in February, which is the first Tuesday, which I think is the first, I will forward it to all of you guys if you feel like dialing in. It'll be 9 o'clock that morning. And Andrew is committed from Lord Thompson Manor. He'll be the host.
Right. Okay, next up was, you had wanted grant applications, and I put updates in Eastern Connecticut land grant, which I think is what we were just talking about under new business.
It is. I do have one more grant update that was received by email at 4:51 today, so I didn't see it until I logged in ahead of this meeting, from Lori Giannotti at CT Deep. Hello, applicants to Deep's Recreational Trails Grant Program. You are receiving this email because your proposal was ranked highly by our advisory committee, the Connecticut Greenways Council, and we are considering it for full or partial funding. We are now in step 4 of our grant making process, and as noted on page 1 of the application, a short list of projects recommended for potential funding will be created. Applicants on this short list will be contacted and will be required to provide the following relevant items. A, copies of permits obtained and timeframes for necessary but still outstanding permits. B, copies of relevant excerpts of local and/or regional plan documents that reference your project. C, evidence of public participation, such as public notices, news releases, public surveys, minutes, and news articles. D, any additional information requested by the advisory committee. You will be contacted individually. In order to move to a potential grant award for items A through C above, please respond to me. That would be Lori Giannotti. 1, that you have already submitted the item. 2, that the item does not apply and for what reason. And 3, send me the requested items by February 28th. So that's significant in that initially they were working with an end of January timeframe. Obviously, February 28th means they're not going to be announcing until at least March. But we have confirmation that we've been shortlisted.
So what we were hoping for, that's great news.
Yeah,
And I have to tell you, I was beginning to get a little nervous because the the little birdies that whisper in my ears had told me that some other towns had gotten calls in December to talk about how they might reduce their proposals, and I never heard a peep, not one little peep. And I emailed Lori and I was like, "Hey, Lori, I heard you guys are starting to notify. Should I be looking for a call?" No response to that. So I didn't know if that meant they decided they didn't want to fund it. The ask was too big. I didn't know. So I was very relieved to see that we are in fact shortlisted, which is what I would have expected all along. But it's nice to have the confirmation. And we had the best suite of letters of support I have ever sent in for a grant. You know, with the two local ones, a local resident and Amy as first selectman. But then we had the Northeast District Department of Health. We had Representative Courtney's office. We had CT Humanities. We had the Chamber of Commerce of Eastern Connecticut and the National Park Service. It would be hard to imagine. We might have had TLGV too. I think we had TLGV as well. So, you know, this project has legs, right? It's out there. We might not get the full $725,000 that I asked them for. We're going to get money. At this point, I feel like I can't imagine they're not going to give us some money.
sounds good. Okay. Moving on, the EDC business marketing strategy. You saw, well, I think you saw in your email, I had worked up Brian Santos' proposal and cut it down to something I think it's doable, won't be overwhelming. People might actually, you know, respond to. Didn't do anything with the brochure suggestion yet. Did anybody read that? It was in yesterday's mail.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't read that.
Yeah, I got it. I read it.
And Tara could put it up on the screen if we want to. Do you want to put that up, Tara? You there?
Yeah, I was just unmuting myself. It's going to take me a minute, so talk amongst yourselves while I call it up.
Let's move on to the next thing.
Okay. And Brian, you didn't get it till today because your email kicked back.
Yeah.
So you probably haven't seen it.
Which one were we talking about?
It was for marketing. I forgot what I called it.
I have the survey thing. Is that you're talking about?
Yeah, I called it survey.
Yeah, I read that over.
You guys have that?
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to make something, like I said, shorter and something that, you know, won't just get set aside. You know, if it's a 3-page document, I don't think we'd get a lot of action on it. My thought was to get some thoughts from people and give us enough to put a meeting together like we had suggested with some of the major players, but it would give us enough to get started. Do we have any comments, changes, additions?
Are you sending this out the way it is?
This is a suggestion.
Well, shouldn't the survey be more of a fill in the blank kind of thing?
Well, we're thinking the survey would probably be an online thing. what we're looking at here is the meat of it. You know, are those
Okay,
questions
okay.
pertinent? Didn't want to have 30 questions. Do they cover enough for us to get a conversation going?
Oh, I thought so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the final format, this won't be the final format. Tira had suggested too that, you know, an online thing might be better, but does this cover what we want to, you know, go over, just to get it started at least, so we don't talk about it for another 6 months?
Have to scratch the surface and not go deep into it.
Could you repeat that, Joanne? You clipped out a little bit. I only caught the back half of what you said.
I said, I don't think you should be going deep in the weeds on this. It should just scratch the surface of what they're thinking. Because if you ask too hard of a question and want too many details, they're going to breeze right through it. You got to keep it simple and not drag it on and ask 100 questions. I like the simplicity.
Yeah, that was my thought, Joe.
Yeah, good, and it looks good the way it is. So, I mean, how many more questions can you ask, really? Yeah, you can, but let's keep it simple and then get some responses. Because nobody wants to do a 10-minute survey online. Believe me, I get surveys all the time. And, oh, it only takes 3 or 4 minutes, and then, yeah, 20 minutes later, you're still sitting there clicking away. So,
I put those aside, never get back to them.
Mhm.
yeah.
I agree. This looks good certainly as a starting point.
So I can ask, well, I could set it up myself, or I could ask the social media intern to create it. This one might be one that I would want to do. I think Zay has been in and out because of school stuff and some sick days. So if you guys want to do this in this format, I can create a Survey Monkey for it. But then you have to decide how are we distributing. I mean, we can make it passively available on the EDC website. That's webpage. That's easy, and we would do that. But then how are you distributing the link? What's your database? It's okay to have some paper copies as well. You know, for the analog folks out there, and we know we have some in Thompson. But the metrics are so much easier to deal with if you do it as an online. You know, and then we could do it as a Facebook post, as a web page story. TBA could distribute it to your database, and you see, I don't know how deep that database is. I presume it's more than just your members.
Yeah, Jody could set it up so we could be interactive on it and probably get some good results.
I think that would be an excellent small joint effort. It certainly works to the benefit of both organizations.
Yeah.
Want to send this out? What's the target date?
We didn't have one, Joe, except for, you know, beginning of the year, which is why we're talking about it now.
So if we're here in January, go ahead, Joanne.
Why don't you do a format and then present it at the next month meeting when at least Brian is here too, to add his 2 cents, and then perhaps after next month we can finalize it and send it out and not waste any more time.
Yeah, and Brian did get this in.
Do we have to wait till next month? I think if Tira can tweak this up a little bit, we should probably throw it out and see what happens. Put it on
Well,
the
I think
pages.
Joanne or whoever mentioned it has an excellent point that this is really Santos's baby in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
And
he needs to give it a final.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did get it in his email, so he could comment without another meeting.
That's true. Typically, I think having something up for a full month is useful. February is a short month, so I think there's nothing really wrong with doing it for March. It gives us time to make any changes, not, not that it's such a rush or hard to do. But, allows one more set of review and input, mostly to include Santos, I think, but maybe it also to bring this to branding at the beginning of the month. There's heavy overlap here, but it's not 100% overlap. So, just so everybody's cozy.
All right, next month, let's give it the final approval then.
And then we can go live with it for March. Those Survey Monkeys do not take that long to set up. Because one thing, so the questions are here, but how many of these are yes, no questions? How many of them are questions that need ranking? How many are questions that require further comment? Those things are a little more granular. But they're not that hard to do.
All right.
All right. Well, at least we have something, concrete to look at and hopefully get moving with. Yeah, because we're missing three members tonight anyway, including Santos.
3.
Well, yeah, Heather, Dan.
Heather O'Rourke resigned almost the day that she joined. You haven't seen any of those?
No.
No, she felt that that she did not have the time to devote because of her work with Teague, because she's on the board at Teague. So she might have sent all that to your thompsonct.org.
It should have been
email.
forwarded, but no, I didn't see anything.
Yeah, Heather O'Rourke has rescinded her membership, which is too bad because she really would have been fantastic.
Yeah.
But we're back out searching.
Poor Renee, I keep having her change our roster. Just this week I had it because she had second alternate vacancy and then Heather's name was underneath but not listed as a second alternate. So I had her change that. Now we have to take her out of there. But okay. Glad I know.
We should have put that under the where we talked about old business terms. We should have talked about it then.
Well, I didn't realize that Yacino didn't know that Heather had resigned.
Well, none of us knew, I guess.
So now we do.
Yep.
Now we are fully enlightened and we need an alternate. That's progress, kids.
Up to.
How about your wife, Lafredo? I keep trying to rope her in.
Not a chance. And I got yelled at for doing the treasury thing for Thompson Together.
She's the smart one.
Yeah, you go to all the meetings anyway.
Okay, well, moving on then. Yeah, the only the only thing with the website was that I noticed that Heather was listed on our roster, but not as the alternates. I didn't notice anything else with our website. I don't guess anybody else did, so. The 11th Village update, I don't have one. I did contact Mike Joyce in December, and he finally got back to me this past Monday. But his only comment was that he had talked to Tira and they'll do something in the spring.
Well, I haven't talked to Mike in some time, so that's an old conversation.
Yeah.
At this point, Yacino, I would say I am handing that off to you, and
No
that I will
problem.
be your support.
Okay.
But we have to get that moving, and I will tell you that is the bulk of the funds that have not been expended, is whatever we put aside for that. That $17,000, I mean, the $7,000 from last year that's encumbered to Eddie, and I'm pretty sure whatever else is left in there, a lot of that is 11th Village money. That money's got to get spent.
Okay.
So let's get aggressive.
Yeah, I've been having people are it seems everybody I contact is on like a 30-day delay. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a COVID atmosphere. Because like I said, I contacted them right after the last meeting And he replied this past Monday on the 17th.
I think things have
And
been.
yes, I understand that that's an old conversation that he was referring to, but it is what he said. That he
Yeah,
had
so then,
talked
so
to-
the next time you talk to him, what I would suggest is saying, Tira has handed this project lead off to me and she is still involved, but that you and Dan are gonna lead that.
Yeah, and I don't remember if I said that in my December message. I might have, but I'll check. I will follow up, see if I can get something more concrete and impress on him the funding issue.
Yeah, and then,
Right.
and then as opposed to what the pattern has been, which is, you know, me being the lead and then assigning the tasks out. You and Dan and Mike would be the leads and assign the task out. And some of those tasks can be assigned to me, and I will complete them. But I can't be the project lead anymore. I just can't.
Okay, no, that makes sense. Okay, so yeah, I'll update further as I get more information. Okay, the NIPS program for sculpture, you don't have any action on that lately, right?
Well, I have an update, but it's not a great one. My partner in crime, Sarah Furbush, her house burned to the ground. The day, literally the day after we set up our next date to to work on them. It was like a Thursday, or yeah, a Thursday, and I said, "Do you want to come over tomorrow?" Or Thursday, and do you want to come over on Saturday? And she said, "Yeah, I'll come over on Saturday." That Friday night, her house burned to the ground. I believe, including the one completed armature that we'd had done was in her house with a bunch of cleaned nips. That, of course, is the least important thing of all of this.
Yeah,
I have not gone back to Sarah to see if she is ready to start wrapping her head around this again, because she lost her whole house. She's living in a hotel with her 2 dogs and her boyfriend. And it just does not seem like the right thing to do. I'm going to have to reach out to her at some point, because I've got 7 blocks of foam in my foyer that have to be done. Now, my husband is also working on this project with us, but he's not an artist. He's a mechanic, right? He's doing some of the technical stuff as we go. It's another one of those things. I never meant to be the lead producer of this. But if my commissioned artist is not in a condition to do this, I'm at something of a loss. When we've got the materials, they're all there. We've got the funds, and they're restricted funds. But I also don't want it to age into obsolescence. So, like I say, I've got an update, but it's a horrible update. And by the way, there was a GoFundMe set up for Sarah. So if anybody wants to look for it, Jess Bolte set it up. I would be surprised if it's not still active. I know Lafredo contributed, Chris and I each contributed, but the poor thing, I mean, she lost everything.
that's an awful thing when you lose everything like that. Was it her own home, or was she renting, or?
No, it was her own home in Thompson. She lives up, or that house is up somewhere near the Webster line.
Yeah, I heard about the fire. I had no idea who it was. Okay. Well, the final item on progress reports is the solar project, which Brian has been keeping us abreast of, Brian Santos.
Ken, do you have any updates on that from the selectman side in the absence of Santos?
I don't have anything. It's still being discussed, as far as I know, through the building committee, and I believe the building committee did not have a meeting in January.
Okay, yeah, because I don't have any new information on it either, which
There are some wetlands.
Santos does copy me as he gets new info, so.
There are some wetlands there, though. I think most of the important ones are off of the property, out of the project zone. But I think that that's under review with wetlands. We haven't been asked to do a site walk up there yet, so I don't know about that. There is another item, though, that should have not been knocked off of the ongoing reports, and that's bicycling events. Because the last weekend in March will be a resumption of that 100-kilometer event that starts and finishes at the Speedway. In addition to that, I got a call yesterday from one of their organizers. They have a container, a standard 40-foot container, which has been up on the Speedway property for several years. But the people at the Speedway are going to be doing some renovations for their observations of spectator areas, and they want that moved out. So I got this phone call and wondered, the organizer wanted to know if I could help them brainstorm. And immediately I put them in touch with the director of recreation. Here's what I think. They want to get that out of there, and they were told before COVID, I knew about this, but everything fell away. Everything went on back burner. I suggested to Brian at Recreation that because of that 75-mile event at the end of March, also they have an event in November up at the Speedway, and also they were talking about scheduling an event in August in Thompson to fill the void that was created when the North Country or the North Kingdom up in Vermont canceled. They had a long-running mountain bike, gravel roads, and single track kind of an event up there, and it canceled. They're no longer going to be doing it. So that's 3 potential events. When I talked with Brian at Rec, I suggested that if all of those were going to be going on, then maybe this is a partnership for recreation to be looking into. However, in addition to the possibility of the one in August, in April, there will be at least one new event in Thompson, sponsored by the Narragansett Bay Wheelman Association. That'll be all on road, but it might coincide with the Rails to Trails Conservancy. They're looking to have events show up on their calendar in April on the 23rd. And April, I don't even know what day of the week, it might be a Saturday, but the National Rails to Trails Conservancy is calling that Trails Day. I didn't know that April 23rd was Trails Day until now. However, the airline trail coming through Thompson is part of their New England spine or core route. It's an important link to the Rails to Trails Conservancy, and they are pushing forward, and they are a source of funding, and they are looking for partners. So those are things that that we need to start thinking about, how we can take our express goals to maximize outdoor recreation, take an express goal to make this bicycle friendly and safe community, and get these events going and rolling so that people will say, hey, yeah, let's go back up to Thompson and ride our bike. 5 events potentially for this calendar year. And
All right.
some of them are going to need your help.
I'll get it on
The,
my
uh,
first
the
agenda.
storage box, Rick, Brian at Rec Department contacted Rick at DPW to ask if it could be parked at the Buckley Hill property for a short time. And Rick got back in touch with the person that called me, so that loop they're working on it. I just want you all to know that this could become something of an opportunity for us. And it occurs to me also, if we're going to have a mountain bike event in August, if we are, we could probably start scheduling parking and support services or vendor tents in the soccer field at the bottom of the hill where there's a mountain bike park. Just a thought.
Okay. Yeah, I'll put, like I said, I'll put bicycling, I'll put the events in the update section for next month too, so see how we're doing with that.
There is one quick other note about that is that the bridge will be replaced on Blaine Road where it crosses the Quinnebog River in the Army Corps property. It's a pedestrian bridge. It's down on the ground there, getting ready to be put in place. We should schedule a ribbon cutting press release. EDC should schedule that perhaps and get some photos and get some people out and talk about, this is important because it replaces a missing link here.
Karen Durlack is in conversation with Ed Greeno about that very topic, a ribbon cutting. So I think you can expect that at the next Trails meeting, Charlie. I'll see you that Blaine Road Bridge, and I'll raise you an $800,000. I don't know if it's a grant or just an allocation from Congress. Amy happened to come into my office while I was on a con call to let me know she just saw a notification. Actually, I think Rep. Courtney called her to say that the Fed is giving 800 grand to West Thompson Dam to improve their campsites. So there's going to be a lot going on up at the dam in short order. So that was, in fact, I meant to go look on Joe Courtney's website to see if it was formally announced there yet, and it didn't. Sometimes I get email blasts from him. I did not happen to see that particular one. So, but there's some more good news about the dam.
When did there's actually a bridge for the Blaine Road?
Yes.
It's physically there, Ken.
Well, I haven't heard anything. The last we knew it was 3 years ago or so. It was in the the bill. The Blumenthal came down and it was temporarily stalled.
Yes,
No,
I know, but it's there. If you
You
go
can follow
to
the Thompson Trails page, Ken. It's been out there.
Ken, if you go to the spot,
I
where we
realize
were
that,
with
but
Blumenthal,
I'm amazed that it never got back to the Board of Selectmen.
well, I don't know why. Because the Army Corps took it over.
Yeah.
Well, they
Oh, it was always
over.
the Army Corps. And they are
was.
they're not as connected to the need or interest to promote as we are.
Correct.
But we have gotten some updates from them. Last March, Karen and Dave Ostrowski and Amy and I met Ed Greeno, and he said he thought things were moving forward. And then months and months and months went by, and all of a sudden we get another email from Ed Greeno saying, hey, they're going to put that bridge in any minute now. And then it was another like weeks and weeks and weeks. And then there's some pictures that somebody took going, hey, look, the Blaine Road Bridge is in. I mean, that's just how it goes with the Army Corps. They have no need to promote because their
No,
mechanism.
I'm just amazed that Blumenthal has not capitalized on that the bridge was there, etc.
Well,
mean,
when it's ready for dedication and use, I bet you he'll be back.
Well, I'll guarantee that, but we had the press conference when it was put on the back burner because of the border wall, et cetera, and funds being diverted, and that was pretty much where it was at the last point. So I'm thrilled that this is happening. It's long overdue, and it's been long, promised after what the Trails Committee did, and working with UConn and getting that all designed and everything. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I expect that Ed Greeno will probably dial into the Trails Committee meeting. I will certainly prompt him to do so, although I know he's been in touch with Karen. So that's the first Monday in February. Is that right, Charlie?
Yes.
Yeah, so the 7th. So the same day that we would be presenting our budget via Zoom, and then later that evening we'll be on the Trails Committee meeting.
And Ken, I've got a photograph that I took on the 31st of December where the bridge was just laying on the ground, ready to be lifted up and put in place. Two pieces. I was told that the Army doesn't want anybody to really be talking about it until they can certify that it's ready for use, but it may already be in place.
You mean they've actually built the abutments and everything?
The abutments were curing for a month.
Wow.
They were curing, and I've been posting notices about this on the Thompson Trails Facebook page, so, or my own, but yeah, they let that concrete cure for a month. They're way up higher than the old ones were. And the bridge is first class. It really is. It's tubular aluminum. There, somebody's popping up. Is that it? Yeah, it's already in place. That's
nice.
from the opposite side. Every time I've taken the picture, it's from the other side.
And
that's almost certainly from the Blaine Road side.
their post
That's
said
facing
there is
west.
from the Corps of Engineers. They said this is great. There is great progress being made on the replacement of the Blaine Bridge. We still need to finish up a few things, so the bridge is not yet open to the public. Please be patient with us and stay tuned for details regarding a grand opening this spring. Please call the park office with any questions. And that's what was shared to the Trails Committee by John.
So what we want to do is coordinate who do we want to invite? Senator Blumenthal was helpful to getting the money into the budget. It just didn't move for a while. So do we want to let him know it's done? And Courtney had a rep up here that day too, I think. But somebody shook loose the federal money and got it, so it's done. So progress, little at a time.
Yeah, it's something.
I've got to say, and this is sort of who knows if it's my closing comment, but I'll say as a at least semi-closing comment, I think a lot of the things that not just this commission, but Trails Committee, MISRAC, a lot of us have been working on, the actual manifestation is going to be happening this year. Sidewalks, environmental cleanup at 929 Riverside, Blaine Road Bridge, work starting on the train wreck park. These things are going to start happening. So what I hope is that will start to soften and improve people's attitudes. Maybe not the hardcore people who want to burn it all down, but the people who can be persuaded by what they see. And if that is the case, let's capitalize on that as much as we can. Because those attitudes will feed into what all of us, in all of the work that we do, can get accomplished, like the amount of friction that we receive.
Yeah. Do we have any other comments or suggestions for next agenda before we close?
Ryan, I just want to, I know Brian Santos is not here. He typically does keep the high school track on the agenda, so if we want to keep that on, that would be a good idea.
Okay.
I don't think there's any updates. He's not here at this time.
Okay, anybody else? All right, next meeting is February 16th. And I'm ready to adjourn at 8:15.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Drive
Good
safe.
night.
Good night, everybody.
Drive safe.
Oh, good.